Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's the Eastern Conference Final. Cats and Bolts back at 3, 2, 1.
Are we playing music? Are we good to go? Are we good?
We're just
nice
good.
work, Benny. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's his New York accent, I think. Or maybe he got it mixed in with Johnny O from last week. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Cats and Bolts podcast, Florida's favorite hockey podcast, and most viewed, I might add. I am one half of the show, Rod Peterson. The top half of the show, Serena Taylor, and we're ready to talk about the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers getting going. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Eastern Conference Final, as producer Ben just reflected on. We're brought to you by Beach House Pompano, as always, DraftKings, and Boresco. And Serena, here it is. The Panthers got through the Bruins. I don't think we really thought that was a surprise. As a matter of fact, I called it, and I'll do a victory lap on that in a second. But Rangers-Panthers, not a lot of people had. I did not.
I don't think, well, to be fair, I called Carolina to beat the Rangers because realistically, they could have. Like I say all the time, and this is not to protect my own ass, by the way. It's because I truly believe this. Anything can happen at any time in the playoffs. You never know what's going to happen from series to series, how one team is going to play. If you look at the Rangers, they were winning. I wouldn't say they dominated Carolina in the first 3 games of the series, but they won them, and all of a sudden a switch flipped in Carolina, and it was close to being a 7-game series. And typically, I think what we've seen in the playoffs so far is that one team dominates while the other one just doesn't. And watching the Boston-Florida series was interesting because I felt like the Bruins came out hotter than the Panthers in every single game. Every single game, the Bruins came out, had a great first period, and then something just happened where they got derailed. Other than, a couple games or whatever, but it's been an interesting thing. But the Rangers and the Panthers, I probably would not have seen that.
And not too many did. I had Carolina going to the Stanley Cup against Dallas, but here we are. That's what makes it fun. Why are we surprised that we're surprised? We knew there was going to be 16 great teams in these Stanley Cup playoffs, and here we go. But I do want to say I did call it right on the schnoz. Panthers in 6. And here's the fun thing about making predictions. When you're wrong, you get soundly trounced and made fun of. So when you're right, you should do a couple victory laps. So I've made a few. That's why I said check the receipts. Panthers in 6. And I thank you, Ben, for the only one applauding is producer Ben and myself. And we will do Eastern Conference Final predictions coming up later. She's got nothing to say. Nothing nice, so she's keeping it to herself. But we'll do our Rangers-Panthers predictions later on at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. Serena, I took the liberty of writing a few things down, and maybe we should go back for a second on the Boston series. I really started to dislike Boston. Johnny O aside, because I love him. There's something about that town, about being abrasive and loud, and they love their teams, and that could be a hell of a rivalry there. Way more than Panthers Lightning may ever be.
Well, like we were saying, rivalries are generally created by something that happened. They may not last forever, but I feel like these two teams have met a couple years in the playoffs in a row. And I think back to the first round when Edmonton was playing Los Angeles and somebody asked Drew Doughty if this is a rivalry because they played 3 years in a row in the first round. And Doughty said, it's not a rivalry. We get our asses kicked every time. So they don't feel like it's a rivalry, even though, because nothing really major happened, right? This has been a lot different. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stuff going on dating back to last year. And I did say that if I was Florida, I would not want to play Boston. Boston at its best could have beaten the Panthers. I don't think Boston was at its best in the entire playoffs at all. I feel like they won a lot of games in the regular season, but they weren't really at their best in the playoffs. And that's when it counts.
They weren't at their best, but I think they're on the way down. The window is closed. That's what I think. And one last thing before we leave Boston in the rearview mirror. Bill Simmons, I feel like this is the best place to put this than anywhere else. I told Serena I'm going to read this to her on the show. She doesn't know this is coming, and maybe you don't either. The famous Boston blogger and podcaster and Bruins fan, Celtics fan, Red Sox fan, Patriots. He said this after the series, quote, on his podcast, Florida fans, settle down. She doesn't know this is coming, by the way. You might want to put a camera on her, Ben. You didn't know what hockey was until like 1993. You literally didn't have hockey. You've never won a cup. The average person who follows sports has no idea what city you're attached to. You're the Florida Panthers. Are you in Jacksonville? Are you in Orlando? Are you in Palm Beach? Nobody knows. The answer is Miami. But literally, most people don't know that. You sit there and you're dressed in red, you're waving your dumb hankies, you're wearing your DeSantis 2026 t-shirts under your jerseys. Nobody knows where the F you play F off.
Gold. I was specifically asking Rod to wait to read me that whole thing. He's like giving me a little teaser early. I'm like, no. I need to hear this on the show to get my reaction. First of all, let's be honest, it's not Miami, but good try. Get a fucking map. You know how many times I've heard people, and I mean, this guy, he's not a fucking hockey guy. He is not a hockey guy. But I hear what he's saying. He's frustrated about the fan thing, whatever. But I've had a lot of people that like live in back where we're from. These are hockey people. We know hockey. We know hockey in and out. Every league, every player, how you play the game, how it goes, blah, 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 blah. If you ask people at home, if I ask my dad, I don't think anybody really knows more about hockey than people like my dad. If I asked my dad where the rink was, he would have
no clue.
No idea. He doesn't, they don't know. They don't care what that, and even if you told them Sunrise, that literally makes no sense to them. They don't care. It's just because they hear the name Florida Panthers. The only reason they know Tampa's in Tampa is because they're called the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, it's just Simmons is just blowing off steam. It's
but,
funny.
However, he's speaking from a place of I'm a diehard Boston sports fan. How dare you think we're the same? And that's how I relate. I can relate to people like that. I'm like, we're not the same. We're not the same. You guys don't get it. And that's why he's like raging, which is just odd to me that all of a sudden he decided to blow a gasket. I don't know what provoked him, but...
Because his team lost, you just said it. But I look at it this way. I've only been here a few years, and it's like, it's not Panthers fans' fault. I don't know why they need to constantly defend themselves. I see why they have a chip. It's not their fault. And why can't they love their team? So that's the thing that I get really tired of, and I'm not even from here. Get defended for them. So I'm ready to move on. I took the liberty of some Rangers-Panthers stats through these Stanley Cup playoffs. So to get here to this Eastern Conference Final, Florida defeated Tampa Bay in round one, as we all know, in 5, and then Boston in 6. The Rangers swept Washington in round one, and then, as Serena pointed out, beat Carolina in 6. That's not really an upset because the Rangers had home ice. Although many of us, including the sports books, had Carolina going all the way to the Stanley Cup. So it's an upset if you look at it that way. I didn't have them picked to win. Florida was 2-1 against the Rangers in 3 regular season meetings this year, which I'll remind you means nothing now. I'm just reading the numbers. As we get ready for the third round, Vincent Trocheck, Mika Zibanejad, and Matthew Tkachuk all have 14 points. That's tied for 5th in Stanley Cup playoff scoring. Power plays in the playoffs. Rangers are 3rd, Florida 8th. Penalty kill, Rangers 2nd, Florida 3rd. So the Rangers are top 5 in both. They're a good team. And goaltending, the all-important goaltending. Bob has the 10th best goals against average, and Igor Shesterkin isn't even in the top 10. He is 11th, but he's not in the top 10. So there's some numbers. What do you think about this series?
So touching on the players like Trocheck and whoever else you listed that have that many points, points don't matter for shit in the playoffs, because when you look at it like this, the Rangers only played 4 games in the first round. Other teams played more games. So if you look at it like that, some of the teams have played more. It doesn't matter. What matters is that they have 3 guys that have that many points that play on different lines. Their whole team is clicking. And I said earlier, I think in the playoffs, it's going to depend on what guys like Alex Lafreniere do. And Lafreniere's had a great playoff so far. Give or take, there was a couple of games in that Carolina series where Carolina just outplayed them so bad that it didn't really matter. But those are the guys that are going to make the difference. When you have a guy like Lafreniere playing on your third line, The Panthers don't have that. They don't have guys like that deep playing on those lines. And the defensemen stacking up, it's not even close as far as the Rangers being more dominant. But the goaltending, yeah, I'll say this. I was one of the only people that kept saying, who cares about Shesterkin? Everyone's like, well, they have Shesterkin. He's a Vezina winner. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Look at Vancouver. Demko gets hurt. I'm like, they're playing a third string guy. I'm like, it's not going to matter. It doesn't matter. And who cares if Shesterkin is Shesterkin? If he's not winning games, like I personally don't feel like Bobrovsky is having as good of a playoffs as he did last year. So is it going to matter, Shesterkin versus Bobrovsky? Maybe. It's not going to not matter, but it's not a game changer like Bobrovsky was last year for the Panthers.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I hope Amy, who watches this show every week, is paying attention to the fact that Bob's played every single minute, and he will. That means things are going well. You don't throw in the backup to give Bob a break. It's not that time of year. It's not that kind of thing. But I always love doing this in playoff series. Check marks. Right? Okay. So I want to know, as far as goaltending goes in this series, I'll go first, and I'll tell you I'm giving the Florida Panthers the check mark. That's from me. The Florida Panthers get the check mark on the goaltending ledger. I'm going to give it to Shesterkin. Just because I feel like Shesterkin is more of a stable goaltender than Bobrovsky. Some of the stuff I've seen Bobrovsky do, like giving up to try to draw a penalty on a cross-check. He's got to stop that.
It's obnoxious, and it's going to bite him in the ass. The only guy who can get away with doing other things like that was Patrick Waugh. And I don't think... And Hasek. Yeah, but Hasek got caught a lot more than Patrick Waugh did. But for this series intents and purposes, I'm going to give the edge to Shesterkin. The guy has proven himself. He's not shaky. He's not flaky. He wins when he needs to.
Defense. You're going to see a rare thing here, folks. Serena and I agree on something. It's the New York Rangers all day, 8 days a week.
Well, you'd have to be lunatic to think that the Panthers have a better defense. It's not even close. The Rangers have the best defense in the playoffs right now. There's teams. Dallas is playing pretty good defensively. Colorado, almost like Cale Makar, the best defenseman in the entire world right now, had a really shaky series. But that's one guy. The Rangers have a whole troop of guys that are going to be. There's no Ekblads on their point. Let's put it that
way.
Which,
by the way, we're coming to that. So hang on, Ekblad fans. Forwards, I'm going with the New York Rangers. And I don't even know what she's going to say. Look it up. Panarin, Zibanejad. I haven't even got to Matt Rempe yet, and that's going to be fun. Not that he's an offensive factor, but when she says points don't matter, look at this. Her Oilers have the top 2 scorers in the playoffs. They've faced elimination multiple times. It's not about points. It's timing, especially this time of year. And listen, I know you will love Tkachuk and Verhaeghe. And again, she might vote for Florida, but I'm going with the New York Rangers for forwards. And let's not forget something that we haven't brought up yet. You look at the Panthers have been to the Stanley Cup final, and everybody thinks, oh, they're so mad from last year. They've got to get back there and win it. The Rangers have been knocking on this door for several years, to the point that last year they fired their coach because they didn't get to the Stanley Cup final in Gerard Gallant, which we got coaching coming up here, and I'll shut up. My check mark for forwards goes to the New York Rangers. You?
100% the Rangers. I would put the Rangers forwards up against probably anybody in the league overall. All of the teams, they're just so strong. And every player on that, you look at their lineup, you're like, oh my God, they got this guy, they got this guy, they got this guy.
Yeah.
Been saying that all year. The Rangers have overall a better team. Does that mean anything right now? No, it doesn't. But again, you're right. Like if you look at guys like Panarin. So if you think of a power forward for the Panthers, I can't even think of somebody that I would be like, that's a power forward. It's really not. Panarin's a power forward. I think Lafreniere is a power forward when he wants to be, but the Panthers, it's not their style of play.
It's all good. I'm just leading you up to something, folks. Serena's check marks. Goaltending, Rangers. Defense, Rangers. Forwards, Rangers. Me, goaltending, Panthers. Defense, Rangers. Forwards, Rangers. And then what's very important to me, there's no doubt it's coaching. And for me, it's Paul Maurice. And I would be nary a series that I wouldn't pick Paul Maurice in the coaching because he's so intelligent. Look you've watched the games with me. He calls a timeout, just loses his mind on his team. Next shift, they go out and score. He's got him like on a yo-yo. It's unbelievable how Paul Maurice knows how to push the buttons of this team. And for that reason, I'm giving the coaching to the Florida Panthers, but I shouldn't speak for you.
I'm going with Peter Laviolette.
Oh, boy.
And here's why. And this is to give Paul Maurice is an incredible coach. This has nothing to do with him. This is why I'm choosing Laviolette. The process was put in place in September and October with Laviolette. He was getting those guys going. They won a crap ton of games in the first 20 games of the season. I think it was like 15-5 or something like that. Then they were like 5-15. It was terrible. They had a really bad 20 games over like November, December, that kind of stuff. And then they started swinging it up again. You didn't see people going, what's the coach doing? What's happening? What is he doing? Why is he trying different lines 2 weeks after to the end of the season? Laviolette had his team dialed in before Paul Maurice did. And that's why I'm going with Laviolette.
It's fine. I'm not going to argue with her. I'll stay with Paul Maurice. This isn't a debate. This isn't.
No, because Paul Maurice is just. I mean, I look at coaches in the NHL and I think like, would I want to have them on my team? Paul Maurice, yes. Peter Laviolette, hell yes. That's how I look at it.
Two great coaches.
100%. Incredible.
Yeah. Her check marks are all Rangers. By the way, before we get to another very fun topic, we're brought to you by DraftKings, the official sports betting partner of the National Football League, but they are introducing the no sweat bet for new customers now. Up to $1,000. Get a bonus bet back in the amount of your original wager if your first bet doesn't hit. Be sure to use the promo code on the screen, THPN, that stands for the Hockey Podcast Network. From DraftKings, the crown is yours. Also, we're brought to you by Beach House Pompano. When we do have live guests like Johnny O last week, they get gift cards from the Beach House, a scenic rooftop restaurant on the shores of beautiful Pompano Beach. It's the official restaurant of the Cats and Bolts podcast, don't you know? And also Burresco right across the street, a tropical outpost serving only the freshest tacos and lush jungle vibes, located at 225 North Pompano Beach Boulevard. In my research for the show, I saw that the Panthers are trying to limit ticket sales.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Just like the Leafs last year. This is George Costanza. You're trying to keep us out of Florida? This is exactly what they're trying to do to Rangers fans. It didn't work against Toronto, but they're trying it.
Like I said, this is the Eastern Conference Finals. I would crawl under a rock with embarrassment if my team couldn't put their own asses in the seats, and they have to block in there. Carolina tried to do it to the Rangers in the last round. Guys, stop with that. Stop with it. If these people want to come and spend their money, because I'm going to tell you right now, if anytime the Oilers play somewhere, because I live here, I've lived in California, places that are fairly easy to travel to, a lot easier to buy tickets here and in California than it is in Edmonton. I know people that will travel to those places, pay for a plane ticket, pay for a hotel, and pay for their seats, and it's still cheaper than buying seats in a game in Edmonton in their own backyard. So if these people want to come and spend their money, let them. But it can't be that. They're not gobbling up the seats. They're not. The Panthers fans have had the opportunity to buy their tickets. If you wanted your tickets for the whole playoffs, you could have bought them for the whole playoffs. So shut the hell up if you decide that you want to go now and the Rangers fans bought them. Too bad. Figure it out.
The Panthers president, Matt Caldwell, was quoted last year when they tried this against the Leafs fans, is that this was simply given the priority to our fans. Obviously, they're trying to do it again. The thing that it's limited to people with a Florida billing address. And it's like, I look at my guy, Chris Sanford, who watches this show every week. Chris from the Bronx. He's a Rangers fan that lives here. There's a lot of those.
Well,
right?
but if you're saying that you're going to limit it so that your fans have first crack, why didn't you do that in the other two rounds? Why is it not like that everywhere else? You don't see them doing it in Edmonton. And Edmonton and Vancouver are stone's throw from each other. Nope. You guys can't do this because we want to give our fans a chance. What is this, a participation medal in kindergarten?
Yeah.
It's a joke.
I can't put myself in the shoes of the Panthers. I've done a lot of work with the Coyotes over the years, and they were the same. They got so mad when the other team's fans came into their arena. And I'm a business guy. I will take anybody's money. And I kind of think these guys are business people too. Having said that, though, I've been the voice of teams, as you know. I've had 2 fans in from the other team, and I went out of my mind. 2 fans, I'd lose it. So I kind of get it. You know what I mean? I kind of get it, but I'd take anybody's money.
It's your problem if you're not building up the anticipation that your own fans want to buy tickets. It's like blaming your sibling for slapping your mother in the ass. If you did it, you take the heat for that.
Lost me there.
So instead of blaming your sibling when you actually did something,
gotcha.
Here's the deal. Figure it out. These people running these ticket sales and stuff are not hockey people. Granted, the guy running the league is not a hockey guy. So this is the shit mess that we're all in. But if you want to do that and not allow the other team, I just literally don't understand it. That means you're not doing a good enough marketing job yourself.
More than anything, I just get a bang out of it. But moving on, just a couple of one-offs. These are like prop bets, but not really. I've got Lomberg written down here. Ryan Lomberg. I was looking up the stats, obviously. He's only played in 2 games in these Stanley Cup playoffs, and one was the series clincher against Boston. And he was in the Bruins' face. He was being Ryan Lomberg. And again, when I have so much respect for Paul Maurice, I'm not questioning who's in or who's out of his lineup. But I will say I would have him in more than not. You know what I mean?
Well, he's not going to hurt. He's not really going to help. Like, he's just the kind of guy that sometimes it's good to just switch things up a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean they don't look at Lomberg as a guy that's going to go out and be a Verhaeghe and score in overtime. That's not what they're looking at. Sometimes a team needs a boost. Look at the first game that Boston played after they lost Marchand. They had a boost. They played really well. Pasternak played out of his mind. And then every other game in the series, Pasternak was terrible. So sometimes they just need that little kick in the butt. And Lomberg seems to be, I don't know if he's a dressing room guy, but he seems to get everybody going.
Yeah. I'm like a lot of the fans that love him. And he's not in for obvious reasons. Right? They feel they have better players. But I don't even know what the circumstances were for Game 6 against Boston that Lomberg went in, other than maybe if it wasn't an injury to somebody else that Paul Maurice said, I think we need this guy and what he brings.
In my opinion, watching, like I said, Boston came out, in my opinion, and dominated the first period of each game. And they got to get under Boston's skin. And if Boston starts hitting them, they were in a little bit of trouble. Putting a guy like Lomberg out there is going to shift the dynamic.
Yeah.
So he's going, we're losing the battles in the corners, behind the net, places where Lomberg will go. He's not scared to go in there. He will go head first. He's not the biggest guy. And I think that's where it was like, we just need a switch in this. Paul Maurice is smart enough to know he could sense Boston was coming on. It was going to be tight. And so him throwing Lomberg in there was just like, this is not going to hurt us right now.
He's a nice, not a Swiss Army knife, but a nice weapon. He's a weapon to use when you need it.
He's like the little grenade. If you're in a missile attack and you throw a grenade, it's going to do a little bit of damage, but it's not going to blow the whole thing up.
So we're Lomberg fans, and I hope he's here long term. He's a key guy. Now, having said that, when I look on the other side of this and we look at matchups, Matt Rempe, the 6'8" rookie, which, by the way, my guy Ron Duguay has the Rangers picked to win this in 6, and he loves Matt Rempe. The guy, he was all the rage all year, right, with his fights and taking on Ryan Reeves. 7 playoff games played. He's got a goal. He's +1 and 8 penalty minutes. Do you think he'll have a role in this series? A factor?
This is what I said to my dad on the phone. What they're going to do is in the first game, Laviolette's going to put Rempe out there against Tkachuk. And the refs are going to call Rempe on a penalty, and they're not going to call Tkachuk because the refs are going to put down the law that they're not going to let Rempe go out there and be stupid, because that's the way it goes in the playoffs. They got to start laying down the law here. But Whether they're going to keep him in, I think Laviolette's going to feel it out, see if Rempe is able to be effective. Because let's be honest, Tkachuk is not going to go anywhere near Rempe. Tkachuk is going to avoid Rempe like the plague. He only goes after smaller guys and guys that won't fight him. And he certainly cannot skate up behind him and stick his arm around Rempe because he can't reach. Nobody can. So I don't think there's going to be as much brouhaha between those two as everybody thinks there might be. Tkachuk's just going to skate away because he's a turtle. He's just what he's going to do. So I don't think it's going to be as much of a factor, but I think there'll be a feeling out process in the first couple games, especially at home in New York.
By the way, I forgot to mention when I was quoting Bill Simmons that in his podcast, he also referred to Matthew Tkachuk as the Antichrist. Thought I would just throw that in there. Aaron Ekblad, I said to Serena as I was looking at the stats, how in the hell is he plus anything? He's plus 6. Because it seems like once a game, he's getting burnt. He's in the wrong spot. He's and 9th on the team in penalty minutes with 10. There's a lot of other guys ahead of him with more penalty minutes, yet it feels like he's taking a penalty at a bad time.
That guy is always screwing up. He turns the puck over. He can't clear the puck out. He turned the puck over in the first Boston goal in that last game and made 0 effort to back check and do anything about it. It was embarrassing. It was the first thing you noticed. You're like, look at Ekblad. What is happening here? And then he's plus 6. Like I said, I don't really feel like a plus minus really matters with defensemen as much as it does forwards, because if I think Ekman Larson was -2, you said, and Ekblad is like plus 6.
OEL's minus player.
Yeah, that's not indicative, in my opinion, of their play, because a guy like Ekblad is probably, based on his speed or lack thereof, is not going to be out killing a lot of penalties. You guy like Ekman Larson is going to kill penalties. He's a good defenseman. So you're not going to put Ekblad out in a compromising situation, so it's completely different.
You wouldn't think, yeah. Ben, listen up for this one. I wrote this down late. When we saw the matchup for the Rangers-Panthers, Serena said, oh, great. This will be something. The NHL wants both teams to win. How's that going to work? Explain.
Listen, this is what's hysterical to me. This is hilarious to me. Last year, I was like, the Panthers got all the breaks by the refs. There's no reason they should have beat Boston. There's no reason. I said it this whole season. Everybody, no. You just don't like the Panthers. You just know that. Gary Bettman wants hockey. No. What is everybody saying right now? Everybody's saying Boston got screwed by the officials. Well, hallelujah. That's what I've been saying the whole time. And now you have former officials saying that. You have players saying that. You have coaches saying that. We're all saying it because now everybody sees it. It was embarrassing by the officials. And everybody, shockingly enough, is now falling on the wagon of, well, they want somebody to win in South Florida because this is where Gary Bettman has chosen. He's gotten off the California train. He's moved on from California. Now we're in Florida time now. God knows where he's going to go next. My guess is going to be Seattle. But now he's on the Florida train. But also, too, if the Rangers win, that's really good, too. So now he's screwed. So now what's going to happen? This will be interesting officiating-wise, but I predict the Rangers are going to get the first penalty in the first 5 minutes of the first game. That's how it's going to go down.
Write it down. So you're saying the NHL favors Florida more than New York? Obviously is what you're saying.
I think so, yes, but I think there's going to be egregious calls on both sides, depending on who's winning the game at that time. Oh, Panthers are up by a goal. We better give them a crappy penalty and make sure the Rangers have the chance to tie it up. That's how it's been the whole year with the Rangers. They get those calls. The Panthers, forget it. What happens with the Panthers is they don't get called on penalties they should. How many times has Tkachuk should have been in the penalty box or should have been evened out, and the other team gets a penalty? Yeah. What's the first thing they did? They called Bruins penalties right away. It's the way it goes.
He seems to be a darling, Tkachuk, and
I don't get it either.
But it is what it is. What it is. They call him one of the most marketable players in the NHL, and I think he's a good guy. I really do. I don't share the Tkachuk criticism here. I enjoy watching him play. He gets all the calls, man. I'd take him on my team anytime.
As far as a human being is concerned, I've said it a million times. From what I understand, We have friends that know him, are friends with him.
Love
He's
him.
a quality human being. I have no issues with that. None whatsoever. Good. I'm glad he is. But as a player, everyone's like, oh, you just wish he was on your team. Hell no. Hell no. If you ever wore that Flames jersey, I don't want you anywhere near an Oilers jersey. Kick rocks.
Got that, Bill Lindsay? I think we've brought that up in here
Billy.
in the past.
Poor Bill.
I only got 2 points left. And one is this: home ice. Is it a factor? The series opens Wednesday in New York, goes Wednesday, Friday there, Sunday, Tuesday here, and then back there Thursday. It's every second night. It's the ideal series, really, space-wise. And I'm not the biggest believer in home ice. And a good friend of mine, John Paddock, coached the Jets and Senators as well as the Regina Pats. He said it's 200 by 85, the ice sheet, either place. The matchups, or like the last change, people put way too much into that, and I'm with him on that. So I don't think home ice is massive. Look what the Panthers did last year on the way in Game 7s all the way, or on the road. So I don't, but you may not agree.
In the grand scheme of things, I really don't think it matters. However, there's been a lot of games in this playoffs, in both rounds, that the fans have really made a difference. When Florida went to Tampa for Game 3, I think they were shell-shocked at how loud it is in there. You have guys like Tkachuk that have never played in the playoffs in a rink that loud, right? And so some of those rinks it's a big difference when you go to some of those places. I think MSG is going to be rocking, but I think the Panthers are used to that. So game by game, sometimes it makes a big difference. But no, you're right. You have to win every game, or 4 out of the 7 to win anyway. Right now, Edmonton and Vancouver, 7 games. Edmonton wishes that they had home ice advantage? Absolutely. Game 7, it makes a big difference where it's played, but you still have to play well to win. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. Shocking. Put it down.
My last one is this. It's time for the all-important and always fun predictions. And I'm a man of my word. I'm going to be here for a long time. That's my plan. So you're going to get to know me well. I don't change sides. And I said last couple podcasts ago, I thought the Panthers would lose out in the Eastern Conference Final. Here we are, and they're playing the Rangers. I'm taking New York in 7. Sorry. I don't think you're going to make a prediction, but it's pretty obvious based on your check marks who you think is going to win.
Right, and it's only fair if I'm going to say Rangers. I think it's only fair for me to make a prediction here. Of course, anything can happen. If both teams play to their abilities, to the top end of their abilities, the Rangers will beat them in 6. If the Panthers have a knack, though, of they get one little inch and they will take it. So like I've been saying the whole year, the Panthers can play 10 minutes out of 60 and still win a game. And that's what they did against Boston in a couple of the games. So the Rangers can pound them into the ground all they want. It only takes one more goal than the other team to win. But I still think the Rangers probably will beat them in 6.
Interesting. I don't know, man. Maybe that's how I got you to go out with me. I wore you down into making a prediction.
I just don't, and I'm not, listen.
It was a lot easier than I remember.
Yeah, I just feel like the Rangers turned it up a notch when the playoffs came. They came out so hot against Washington, and the way I watched them against Carolina, I was like, whoa. And the Rangers won their first 7 games. The only other team to win their first 8 games of the playoffs were the 85 Oilers. They swept the first 2 rounds. And the Rangers were close to doing it. However, they were playing a formidable opponent. When the Edmonton won the Stanley Cup in 84 and 85, yeah, they beat the Islanders in 84, which was tough, but beat them 4-1. Edmonton was dominant. The Rangers had a tough go against Carolina. Carolina, in my opinion, was a better team than they showed up against the Rangers.
Yeah. Well, you look at all these numbers, it should be a long series. I guarantee it's going to be a fantastic series. You done?
I guess.
All right. Enjoy the hockey, everybody. Great job, Betty boy. We'll see you next week here on the Cats and Bolts podcast.